Wanted to thank A-Press for hosting us and for the pizza. We also had two other sponsors, Stride and the Holodeck, who helped bring Sean here, so thanks to them. There are a couple upcoming things that are happening that you may want to know about. So we are now having a hack night every month at NYU, thanks to Mike and the folks at NYU Tandon. So the next one will be on the 16th of November, and then I think December 13th. So if you're interested in seeing how this actually works from a hands-on perspective, please come. Usually people bring their HoloLens, so you can have a chance to actually see how to write software and deploy it and experience it. November 30th, we're having Bart Trzynowski, whose name is very hard to pronounce, who actually was the, technical reviewer of Sean's book. So he's coming on the 30th, and he is involved in producing several games, one of which is a Japanese language learning game, which is really cool, and he's going to tell us about kind of his experiences in building those. And then on the 19th of December, we are going to we're going to have a joint event with ARNY, NYVR, and as many other mixed reality, virtual reality, augmented reality groups as possible. We're going to have it at the Reactor. It'll be a holiday party. It's going to be called the Reality Mixer Virtual Escapade and Augmented Holiday. So hope to see you there. We're going to announce that soon, but I want to make sure that we can get some demos. So we're hoping that some folks from the store will come over and be able to do HoloLens demos and also demos of the new mixed reality headsets. So that's coming. One of the reasons that I was interested in forming the group was that I'm a developer, and I was thinking, if I want to do HoloLens development, how am I going to find people who want, who have projects that they want somebody to work on? And I thought, well, if I go to the Ruby Developers Meetup, say, they have a developer meetup, and then all the recruiters come because they know all the developers are there. So I thought, if I form a developers meetup, then the developers will come, and then the people who want to find developers will also come. And this has happened. So one of the things I want to make sure is that before we start presentations, people have a chance to talk, introduce themselves. If you're looking for a project to work on, or if you have a project you need somebody to work on, or if you have something you want to show off, or any other kind of announcement, please feel free. Now's the time. Nobody tonight? Well, I think you have some things you'd like to say, right?
I do, yeah.
The floor is yours.
Thank you. So it's really good to see everybody here. I'm Jonathan Gennick. I'm actually Sean's editor on the book, and so I'm really, really happy we could have a small part to play in bringing him out here to talk. We had breakfast today. He told me some of what he was going to say here, and I think you're all going to be really glad he came. We had a good time this afternoon. This picture is just from earlier today. We were out doing some advanced planning. We took a spin down the bikeway there. It's really, really nice. We enjoyed that a great deal, and we avoided the rain. I did want to mention this coupon code. We had this created for this event just for you guys on Soho. So if you don't already have a copy of his book, go to apress.com, buy a copy of his book, enter that code during the checkout, and you'll get 40% off. So that's a pretty strong discount. So on Soho for that. And since Sean is an author, I thought I would just take a couple, 3 minutes to talk about why you might, or anybody might want to write a book, right? So, because this is an area, there's so much going on, and it's such a fun area, and there's so much change happening. It's an area that we're actually looking actively for other people who have things to say back to the community, maybe in book form. So I kind of inserted this slide here. It's an old scroll, and I just want to make the point that, for as long as humans have been around, there's always been a need for long-form content, right? And with the advent of ebooks and all that, sometimes you get people get it into their heads that books are obsolete, but that's really not the case, right? Formats change, and we've had printed books, and now we have electronic books, and we're kind of in this 50-50 zone. But there's always a need for well thought out, coherent, long-form treatments of topics. So that's something to keep in mind. So why might you want to write something? One reason is to advance your career, which is what AZAT Martin experienced. By writing a book, there's really a couple things you demonstrate, right? You demonstrate competence in the topic. So I know enough about the topic to write a book. It's also very tangible evidence that you actually can complete a project, right? Because you have this physical evidence that you started something and you finished something. And I think it's a very powerful message. It goes to credibility. It's a good way to get your foot in the door. Another reason is just because you like to help people and you like to teach. One of our best Oracle authors, Darrell Kuhn, he is a professional Oracle DBA, works for Oracle Corporation, teaches on the side at a university, and he writes. He just likes to share the knowledge and he likes to see people grow and develop. Although I will tell you, the book writing has paid off for him job-wise as well. I teamed him up with a very well-known, world-renowned Oracle expert who doesn't normally co-author with anybody, but when he saw Darrell's work, he decided to co-author with him. Oracle did a big reorganization, reshuffled a bazillion people in their Denver offices, and one of the executive VPs noticed that this guy had co-authored with this other well-known person. So the next thing I know, Darrell's calling me up on the phone saying, they promoted me, and so that's really good. Now I report to this guy 2 levels up, and he doesn't have any time to write books anymore, but it's been really good for his career. So Adam Freeman, it's basically learning, the challenge to yourself. Can you do this? And the growth that you go through when you write a book, the things that you learn. Sean mentioned to me earlier that it forced him to explore a lot of nooks and crannies that maybe he had been ignoring up until that point, right? Because he had to be able to talk intelligently about them. And finally the community, right? Look at what we're doing here. We're here in part because Sean wrote a book, right? So it's because of his book, we're kind of all in this room together. This is actually a book from another publisher. It's one that my boss published a few years back. And when they published it, they had a big event, and there was a kind of little community that grew out of that, so it brought people together. So just some of the things to think about, and I just want to make sure that you all know that we're, no obligation, of course, but we are actively looking for people with something to say. It's a fascinating area. I'd love to talk to you if you have any interest at all in writing something. I have business cards back there. You can corral me anytime tonight and shoot me an email if you have any interest. And I think that's the end of my talk, so I'm going to turn it back to Paul here.
So I'm just going to briefly introduce Sean. Okay, yeah, well, I'll get set up. So Sean is a very active developer of mixed reality experiences. He's done mixed reality work in a variety of sectors. I'm sorry, I don't remember this stuff very well, so I have to read it. But he's done work in retail, architecture, education, and entertainment. He's worked with companies from Shanghai to Dubai. He's the president of the VR/AR Association Seattle chapter. So that's actually a group that's extremely active. And he's the author of the book Beginning Windows Mixed Reality Programming for HoloLens and Mixed Reality Headsets. He's also founded several companies involved in other things such as clean energy, robotics, and telepresence. So I'd like to introduce Sean Ong. One other thing to note, we have a 360 video going on, so you will probably be part of the video.
Okay, how's everyone doing today?
Well,
good. Fantastic. So before coming here, Paul and Jonathan and I were tossing around several different ideas, and I gave a list of, I think it was like 5 or 7 different topics on what we can talk on. And one of the topics was turning holograms into money. So the idea of how do you monetize mixed reality today? And Paul immediately was like, that one. So I do have, if you've read my book, you'll see I have a chapter dedicated to this. So there's a little bit more detail in there, but I'll just kind of go through. First of all, I'd like to just tell you a little bit about myself. So I have a company called Ong Innovations, actually founded in 2013, doing a lot of fun things on the side, product development, selling, developing products and selling them on Amazon and so forth. At the time, I didn't even think about AR and VR. But fast forward to when the HoloLens was announced in January of 2015, the first time I saw it announced, I was like, this is the future. I need to get on this. So I was clamoring at the bits until it was finally available to developers. Got the HoloLens, started doing some side projects on that, and that kind of ushered me into this new career that I'm in right now. So now I've got a small team of people. I've got a developer working under me, a UI, UX designer, a 3D artist, and I've developed a wide range of apps for clients all over the world, ranging from Sydney, Australia, to Dubai, to Shanghai. I've worked on education apps, sports apps, real estate, architecture and engineering, social, kind of remote chat apps, and a lot more. So if you have any questions or like to know a little bit more about the apps that I've developed, feel free to chat afterwards. I'd be happy to tell you about it. So as Jonathan mentioned, I'm an author. I wrote the beginning Windows Mixed Reality book. One of the challenges of writing a mixed reality book is that things change on a, I wish I could say weekly basis, but it's actually a daily basis. So every time I'd finish a paragraph, it'd be obsolete. But I've talked to many other authors, and they all have the same concerns, but we all, kind of, we enjoy the fast pace. It's being on the bleeding edge, right? So recognizing that a lot of the topics you'll see in the book are not so specific to a certain version of Unity or a certain version of Visual Studio, but they're general concepts that you can apply across versions. Of course, beyond my HoloLens book, I've actually published over 35 technical publications. My background's actually in clean energy, so I've worked for the Department of Energy, National Renewable Energy Lab. I've done some energy evaluation work with a few private companies. So that was kind of my first initial part, and now I'm jumping into Windows Mixed Reality, and I'm working on a secret energy app, and I'm going to kind of unify everything hopefully in the next year or two. I do also have a YouTube channel. Some of you may have seen some YouTube content I put out. I've got almost 40,000 subscribers. Historically, I've done a lot of videos on Microsoft products such as the Microsoft Surface. More recently, I focused a lot on Windows Mixed Reality, the HoloLens, and the Acer headset, and so forth. Something that I enjoy doing, but I've been increasingly have less and less time to do. Hoping to get back into that. This is my family over here. You can see I've got 3 amazing kids, a 7-year-old, a 5-year-old, and 1-year-old, and they are actually a big source of inspiration for me for a lot of the apps that I develop. You'd be amazed at how creative kids are, and sometimes they'll say like, "Hey, Dad, can you do this?" I'd be like, "Wow, I never thought about that, but I can do it." And that's something amazing about mixed reality, is that almost anything you can dream up, almost anything that you can imagine, you can actually do, right? So, as a kid, I dreamed of walking through this teleportation door because of a cartoon I used to watch. And I used to think, oh, will that ever be a thing in the future? And when I first got my hands on the HoloLens, I'm like, hey, I can actually make that in the HoloLens. So that was one of the very first apps that I made and published to the Windows Store. Actually, you can download it. It's just a door that plops in your space. You can open the door and walk through it, and suddenly you're in a new world, right? That kind of launched me into thinking like, there's really nothing you can't do with mixed reality. It's kind of you can do whatever you can dream up, and I think that's part of the magic. So enough about me. Let's. So the way I want to structure the talk today is kind of give you the big picture about thinking about the future. What is the future of mixed reality going to look like? What's what are some things that are going to happen, and then kind of rewind that back to today, and talk about how are we going to get there from today, and what does that mean in terms of business opportunities and in terms of contracts and so forth. So, I think it's fairly clear, almost everyone in this room would probably agree that, in the future, holograms, mixed reality is going to take over. It's going to be ubiquitous. It's just a matter of it happening. It's just going to happen, right? We're going to wear, devices like the HoloLens. It's going to be small, something light like a pair of glasses. It's going to replace all of our 2D screens. There's no reason to have a 2D screen, right? There's no reason to have a TV on the wall when I can have a gigantic holographic TV. there's no reason I need to pull out my phone when I can just have a holographic phone. Same with a watch. Same with, why are we looking at this projector right now? If we all had these glasses, we could see, a holographic representation of that. And that's just 2D screens, right? We haven't even gone into 3D. In fact, we've barely started to grasp what does 3D computing actually look like. A lot of people today are thinking in terms of 2D screens. And I was talking to somebody earlier about data visualization in 3D, and this idea of, there's one more dimension that we have to work with, but it opens up infinite possibilities, right? So, the movies are a big source of my inspiration. I'll see something like Minority Report or another sci-fi movie where they have holograms, and I start thinking about, these are some things that are possible in the future. But I think something to realize is that, yes, it's good to think about the future to get inspiration, but ultimately, everything that you can dream up or think about, you can do today. And I think that's really the power behind the technology that we have today. You're literally holding it in your hands, right? It's like, oh, holographic watch. Oh, I can't do that with this. Well, actually, you can. You'd be surprised. Using Euphoria, using some creative programming, using some creative tracking, there's actually very little that you can't do. There's so much that you can do, and we have this canvas, right? So I like to think of the HoloLens as a canvas for, opening up so many different opportunities, and I think that's the way that we start needing to think. It's not about, oh, is this going to happen in the future? I'm so excited for the future. I'm going to wait for the future. Instead, you should be thinking, okay, this is something that can happen, but I can start making it today, right? So having that kind of mind shift puts you in, instead of being a follower, you suddenly become a leader. Now you can start approaching people and saying, hey, I see a future in which businesses operate like this because of what mixed reality can do, and now you can start approaching the people and talking about those ideas. All right, so somebody asked me earlier about AI. I think this is so powerful that I had to make a slide on AI. The HoloLens has the ability to do spatial mapping. So immersive mixed reality headsets can do tracking, not spatial mapping quite yet, although I think that's coming soon. But really, if you are a HoloLens developer, one of the eye-opening moments, at least for me, was when I tried out spatial understanding, where through the mapping data, you're able to see what's a chair, what's a floor, what's a table, find these things. And that really got me thinking that AI is something that we need to think a lot about as we're talking to clients, as we're talking to prospective people who want stuff done in the HoloLens. Because ultimately, it's not just about visualization. So a few different examples that I talked about at a different talk is construction. So you can, I'm sure many of you have seen some videos where workers will have a holographic representation of the blueprints, right? So now they know, everyone wearing a HoloLens will know exactly where to put the beams, exactly where to lay the foundation to build a house up. Now imagine if you could pair that with artificial intelligence. So now all of a sudden you've got your workers, everyone's wearing the HoloLens or glasses, you're starting to build the house, but there is an artificial intelligence kind of orchestrating everything. Okay, is this person done ahead of time? All right, now they can go over here. Okay, now this is the order in which we need to build everything. So all of a sudden you're networking devices together. Everyone can see things in holographic space, but they're also being led and guided, right? And you can expand it. You can expand this to a factory. You can expand this to any sort of work where all of a sudden you've got this system, this artificial intelligence that's orchestrating things, making things far more efficient. Furniture store. So I'm currently under negotiation with a furniture company that's going to open a showroom in New York actually pretty soon. And at first, they started thinking about, hey, we have this huge catalog of furniture, and we can't fit all of it into our showroom, but we'd like a way for people to see it, and not just through, paper catalogs or videos or even 360 photos. And of course, devices like the immersive headsets and the HoloLens, that provides that value which you just can't get, right? To see something in full size, to be able to walk around it, to be able to observe it. And they were thinking about, hey, can we actually bring these devices, so people can come to our store and look at it, but can we bring these devices into people's homes and offices? And I said yes, and not only that, but you can actually use artificial intelligence, using the spatial mesh, you can actually figure out how to filter down from your tens of thousands of items in your catalog to, those certain furnitures that will fit into certain spots, right? And you can even have it place it in a smart way, oriented in a smart way. This is all possible today, right? So this is just a glimpse of the power of artificial intelligence combined with the technology that we have. Things to be thinking about when you're thinking about the future. It's not just about visualization. It's about utility and it's about value. All right, so I'm really bullish on Windows Mixed Reality. There's a few reasons why. I've actually been really excited. This year especially has been huge for me. So if for those of you who've been following the VR market, you probably know that the #1 selling VR device is actually the PlayStation VR, right? A lot of you would be surprised, oh, isn't it Oculus or Vive? No, not really. It's actually PlayStation VR. And that makes me really excited because the immersive headsets by Microsoft, the Windows Mixed Reality headsets, these are going to work with the new Xbox. Now, for those of you who are not gamers, and I'm not really a gamer myself, you might think, well, what does that have to do with me or enterprise? And it has to do with adoption. So these run the same exact operating system as the HoloLens. In fact, now when you make a HoloLens app using the latest version of Unity, it works on both the immersive headset as well as in the HoloLens. So it's all about the ecosystem. It's getting that initial injection of the ecosystem. And Microsoft has been way, way ahead. I mean, with the introduction of the HoloLens, and it's still being the #1 device of its kind, I think that's already a big head start. But now you've got all these Windows Mixed Reality devices at a really good price point. And then on top of that, you've got it coming to the Xbox, which is going to drive adoption. It's going to drive people into the platform, and that being connected with the HoloLens. Suddenly, you see that we have this platform that has a lot behind it, and it's not going to be very easy to kind of disturb that. And of course, who knows what the next version of the HoloLens is going to look like. But we've all seen those reports about how Microsoft was going to release version 2, but decided to wait to version 3 because they're in a comfy spot right now. So there's a lot going. So as a developer, I'm seeing all these signs, and I'm like, yeah, Windows Mixed Reality is exactly where I need to be, developing for HoloLens, developing for immersive. I recently ported one of my apps over for a client to the immersive headset, and just seeing like, wow, this works. It feels completely different in both devices, but it works in both devices for different purposes. It just makes me really excited to be in this space. And then last bullet point, but even if another headset were to pop up, one of the amazing things about VR is that everything is pretty compatible with each other. Whether you're developing for Vive or whether you're developing for Rift or Google Daydream, if you use Unity, it's actually not that hard to port apps over. Okay, it's a little bit of work, but it's not like you have to rewrite everything from scratch. So from a developer's perspective, this whole platform, mixed reality in general, regardless of the brand, is actually it's a really nice place to be right now. Okay, so opportunities. So I talked a little bit about this earlier, about thinking about the future, right? So, I like to think that there are two kind of primary ways that people find opportunities. You can either respond to existing opportunities, or you can create new opportunities. And I'm actually really excited about creating new opportunities. I think that's kind of where the real push is going to come from. But there are, if you're wanting to get started, responding to existing opportunities is a great place to get started. In my experience, if you are regularly a part of online communities, if you're part of forums, mixed reality forums, HoloLens forums, you'll see actually almost, I'd say on a daily basis, if you keep track of multiple forums, there's job opportunities that come through all the time. There's contract opportunities that come through all the time. A lot of these are smaller opportunities. They're like, hey, can somebody spend a week and make me a proof of concept? Sometimes they're a few weeks, sometimes they're a few months, but these are really good places to kind of, if you're needing that initial injection, to keep track of that. And also developing a presence in those online communities and making yourself known, making it easier to find. Of course, freelancer websites, if you check those, if you check Upwork, freelancer.com, there's like, I don't know, 10 different freelancer marketplaces. You'll see a ton of opportunities every single day. Sometimes it's hard to weed out the bad ones. Some of them have unrealistic expectations, but you kind of have to be smart. But there are, these kind of opportunities out there where you can respond. My advice for these is make sure you have a few different projects under your belt, not necessarily client projects, but at least something to show. You'd be surprised how many clients will ask me, so have you developed any applications? I was like, yeah, otherwise I wouldn't be applying. And they said, well, you'd be surprised. I get so many different applications for people who've never developed anything, And because this is such a new technology, people want to know. Clients want to know that you've done something. You know how to do it. It's such a new technology. Something that's good is that it actually doesn't take much to impress people because it is a new technology. Sometimes I'll download something from the asset store, and in 5 minutes I'll have something. You're like, whoa, how did you do that? Like, wow, So you'll show it in the Hololens and be like, this is amazing. And deal right there, So it doesn't, because it's such an amazing new technology. People don't know. I mean, they see a video of you walking around this hologram, and they're like, wow, how is that even possible? They don't know really what's behind it. So use that to your advantage. I use the asset store all the time. It's quick, it's easy. You can find a lot of different things on there. So use that to your advantage. Now, creating new opportunities, this is really where the growth is going to come from. And this is where you kind of have to change your mindset and think about the future. So this is a story I shared in my book, but I like to tell people about it. Imagine if you were a computer salesman and had a time machine, and you could go back in time 60 or 70 years, right? And you had a laptop with you, and you're trying to sell that laptop. So you're walking into businesses, everyone's doing spreadsheets by hand, on paper books, everyone's keeping records by hand, in drawers. Nobody's using a computer. Things are really inefficient. They take a long time. There's a room full of people doing hand calculations, and you're there to try and sell a computer, right? What is it going to be about, right? As you walk in, people are like, whoa, what is this thing? This is kind of scary. I'm not sure if this will, is this for me? What is this silly gadget? Right? Is this a toy? But really, yeah, a computer can do a lot of cool things and fun things and games, but ultimately it comes down to the value, right? The main message as a computer salesman is this is going to save you time, this is going to save you money, and you're going to be able to do things with this computer that you could never do before, whether it's in terms of graphic design and artists or engineering or CAD modeling or record keeping or so many different. It's amazing how computers have transformed our industry, right? We are going through that same exact thing with mixed reality right now, with the immersive headsets, with data visualization, with the HoloLens, with the controllers and new ways to interact with your environment, things that are not possible at all with flat screens. My Dubai contract, they want to have people who are in China experience their apartments. And no matter how much you try with paper or videos or 360 videos, you can never get that sense of how big an apartment is. You can't actually walk through an apartment and look at the counters and look at the tables and get a sense for where you are. That's something you can't do, but with mixed reality, all of a sudden you can. So that's a brand new value that did not exist before, and those are the things that you really need to hold on to and say, this is something new. This is not, a rehashing of something old or, novelty. Yeah, novelty is kind of what draws people in typically, but what will keep people in is value. So if you can demonstrate that yeah, this is going to help you close that sale. You know, this is going to help you save time, you know, save money. Those are all value-added items. So think, you know, so as you're thinking about this computer salesman analogy, think about what the mixed reality future is going to look like. Think about holograms everywhere. Think about how efficient your life is with these different scenarios. And to be honest, we're all new. That future hasn't happened yet. You know, and people have these ideas. My kids have a bunch of ideas, and I constantly hear ideas, and you'd be surprised, a lot of ideas, I'm like, yeah, you know, that makes perfect sense. And one guy who's a security guard, he's like, I would love to have monitors all around me of the security feed, you know, because we don't have enough. I only have 4, but we have all these cameras and they're constantly switching. I would love to just see everything around me. I'm like, yeah, that's awesome. You know, I wish I had more time to develop that app. You know, you know, so there's so many ideas that I personally don't have time. If I had 10 of myself, I would start going out to every single company I can think of. I'd be like, hey, this is going to save you time. This is going to save you money. You know, so many different industries. You know, I've got all these ideas bubbling, and you know, it's not going to be one person, right? It's going to take all of us going out to all these some industries that maybe I've never even heard of. You know, you'd be surprised how many of those pop up all the time. And so we're in a period of time where it's kind of like a gold mine. It's a gold rush right now. You know, there's all these opportunities, and it's just a matter of recognizing those opportunities, recognizing, hey, this is actually going to save time in a real way. This is going to save money in a real way. Let's go show somebody a free demo, right? Let me spend a few minutes. Let me create something really fast, and let me go and have a conversation. And because devices like mixed reality and the HoloLens are novel and so exciting, in general, people are very open to that. Yeah, I'd love to try out the HoloLens. Yeah, you know, it's a good conversation point. If you send them a few videos, if you do some of that, in general, you get a positive response. So, you know, show and demonstrate. What I've noticed is that people really want to see stuff, right? So they don't, when you tell them about it, it just doesn't seem real. It's just like, this is like some sort of dream, or this is not real. What are you talking about? You know, I don't believe that you can actually do this. You know, so the power of a demonstration is huge. So it does take a little bit of upfront investment, you know. So in this case, it's you've heard of the 80-20 rule. In the HoloLens, it's the 99-1 rule. It just takes a small slice of effort to put something really quick, a prototype in Unity, but that goes a long, long way to showing people. You know, so when I closed my DAR, the Dubai apartment deal, I literally just took an asset of an apartment from the asset store that was free and put it in. They're like, this is exactly what we want. Like, wow, you know. And you know, same thing with the tennis app. And so there's, you know, just put a little bit of effort into that initial demo, and then you have something. You have an anchor. Right? People are looking for an anchor to have a conversation around. And once you have an anchor, once you have something, they can be like, oh, but can you improve this texture, or this is kind of blurry, or can you have it so that I can like pick it up? Sure, yeah, let me show you right now. You know, so then you kind of have a conversation point. It gets the conversation going, and then the ideas start flowing, right? And once your client starts expressing, or potential client at this point starts expressing their needs and their ideas, like, oh, you know, this is a real pain point. This is what we want to do. Is this possible in mixed reality? Oh, of course it is, right? And again, it comes back to just, you're working with a platform that you can just do so much with, right? Some things might take a lot of effort, especially once you start getting into the AI stuff, but it's possible, right? So depending on whether it's just visualization, which is on the easy side, or something as complex as you know, intricate functionality combined with artificial intelligence, it's all possible. And from that point, you can have a conversation. Is this helpful for people so far? Yeah. All right. So I wanted to share a few of my insights. So I've been doing, so the HoloLens actually hasn't been out for that long. You know, 2016, early 2016 is when I was part of the Wave 1 developers. I didn't actually start doing this full time until January of this year. So I actually, you know, it's a new, brand new industry, but, you know, I wanted to share some of my insights. You know, one is, don't be discouraged. You know, when you reach out to a lot of people, you're not going to get 100% of the deal, right? That's just not how things work. But do keep a good pipeline. Talk to a lot of people. I've been amazed at how many people actually come back. People who I thought, oh, they weren't interested. But when you talk to somebody, when you show them a demo, it stays in their mind, right? And then later they know when the conversation comes up, when somebody executive says, hey, look at how VR and AR is growing, we really need to use this in our company somehow. All of a sudden they're like, oh yeah, Sean, he showed me a demo. Then you get the call. So don't be discouraged about the contracts that you lose. Most of the contracts that I'm working on right now have actually been proposals that I submitted like 6 months ago that I lost. And these are new opportunities. So lost proposals are actually, they can be a good thing because people will remember you as doing something. So keep a good pipeline. I talked about this a little bit. Start with fast function and end with perfection. In general, I found that when you start with perfection, it doesn't go well. Things take too long. Things don't go as well as you want them to. And in the end, you just end up losing the deal because you can't deliver, right? So don't get bogged down with perfection. Start with something fast that people can respond to. People like, if you give a client something that's perfect and they have, people always try and find something to complain about, or they're always trying to find something. So if you can start with something very quick, it demonstrates that, wow, you can do this quickly, you're efficient, and then it also gives your client or potential client something to respond to, something to talk about, and then you can kind of go from there. What I found with a few people is that this is a major stumbling point because they want to start with perfection. They don't want to do anything unless it's picture perfect. And I think depending on who you're talking to, that might be something to consider. But most of the time, I think just starting with something really, really fast is better than not offering anything at all. Even a fast, imperfect thing is better than nothing at all, right? A proposal goes a long way. So, I've talked to a lot of people who are really casual and they just want a message or they just want a Skype conversation. But where I found the most success is when I actually take the time and say, okay, I'm just going to spend a few hours, put this into a nice proposal, a template, put out a budget, put out a timeline, put in a description, a work item, kind of rehash what we talked about. And that I've noticed that goes a long way. Even when it's a casual person, like, oh, you don't need to do this for me. For some reason, it just helps a lot. So I do have a template. If you'd like a template, feel free to send me an email or you can give me your email, and I'm happy to send out a blank template for you to kind of use if you're interested. Don't let your limitations stop you. So, one thing interesting about mixed reality, both the HoloLens and the immersive headsets, is that it's not just an app you're holding in your hand. You've got audio engineering problems, you've got visual problems, you've got 3D artist problems, you've got coding and developer problems, you've got UI, UX problem. That's a huge one. It's like, how do I interact with this thing? I don't want a keyboard. I don't want to have to go like this with my head, So you've got all these different things to think about. And I think it's unrealistic to think that any one person could do that whole spectrum of things, right? So don't let your limitations stop you. If you think, wow, I just can't do this, I can't do the AI part, I have no AI experience, or I can't do, the audio part. Don't, leverage resources. There's a lot of people, for example, in this group, there's a huge HoloLens community, there's a huge community online. Take advantage of those resources. Don't let that be kind of a stopping point. When you're talking to clients, don't say, oh, I can't do this part of it, so let's leave this out. No, include everything in. Have a conversation, have a plan for how you're going to secure those resources, but don't let that be a stumbling block. And then, of course, share your work. So this is actually a painful point. We were talking about this a little bit earlier with somebody. I've seen a lot of good mixed reality apps and a lot of good HoloLens apps, but I've talked to a lot more people. I don't know what the numbers are, but I wouldn't be surprised if 3/4 of all really good experiences have never seen the light of day because they're under NDA, or they can't be shared, or they're sensitive, or their clients don't want it out in the public. So that's really sad because there's a lot of really cool stuff happening that we've never seen. It never sees the light of day. So as much as possible from the very beginning, talk about sharing your work. I always talk about this with my clients, and sometimes they're a little skeptical, but I always try and think of a way to, hey, can I at least share a version of it, that's kind of taking out some of the sensitive data, or can I share this, or make a video on it? And it's great because it allows people to discover you. It allows you to kind of get your name out there. I'm actually surprised how many people find me just on YouTube. They're like, hey, you made that buildings application. Can you make that for this? I'm like, yeah. Then it kind of gets the conversation going. So share your work. That definitely, it leads to more work. I think, yes. Any questions?
Yeah, so I love all of this, and I think it's a really great and needed overview and kind of clear sight about how to actually do something in this industry. So I also have a company, but I find that, and not in AR or MR, it's more about branding and advertising and stuff. And I always find that it's very difficult to match the expectation of the client to their budget and to time.
Yeah.
And so how much of that are you experiencing, and do you have any tips on
That's definitely, so that's kind of like the Upwork I was telling you. Some people have just unrealistic expectations. I think just if you can make everything really clear in your proposal, I think that goes a long way. There's been a few times where I've had to go back to the proposal, and they've been like, oh, you said you were going to do this. I'm like, no, in my proposal I said I was only going to do this. And I've actually had to tweak the way I do proposals over time and make it more and more specific, because clients do come back with a lot of things. One strategy that I've noticed works is when you include in your proposal for doing extra things, so splitting stuff out into a menu. I'll say, hey, I'll do this for you, but if you want this feature added, it's going to be this much more. If you want this feature added, it's going to be this much more. And kind of think of the whole picture. Think of a really awesome app, but then split it up into menus. And most of the time, they'll only be able to afford the basic, but then they'll know, hey, the app could do so much more. And they'll be like, hey, can you add A, B, and F to the app? And I'm like, sure, So that's one way to do it. But I'd say, in general, client expectations, I think that's a hard one no matter what industry you're in.
Do you find that people have the budgets, though, to actually afford you and your team in a comfortable way, or is it
not everyone does. I mean, there's some people out there who are like, hey, can you make fragments for $500? We're like, no, I don't think that's possible. But there are companies like DAR. They're a big multi-million-dollar company in Dubai that makes skyscrapers, and so it just, because, like I said, we're in a gold mine right now. You can afford to pick and choose, right? If you're just getting started and you need a few things under your belt for qualifications, then sure, maybe you can lose some money and work on some smaller projects just so that you can add those to your resume. But there's so many different companies you can approach. We haven't even scratched any surface at all, right? And so there are people with bigger budgets, and it's just a matter of getting the time to show them a few demos, having that conversation, and if you can afford to, not settling for less. It's I don't know if in business you see these S curves, right, of technology, and as some technologies start to mature, they start to level off, but then a new technology starts to rise up. But the catch is that you have to start down here, right? So that's something to think about. Is okay, these other traditional software engineering, traditional app making, we're kind of getting to the top of that, and mixed reality is just starting to boom down here, but it's not going to start up here and continue on. It's going to start somewhere here, because people are just unfamiliar. They don't know the value. They rely on us to tell them what the value is. They don't know. A lot of people, you'd be surprised, they think it's a toy. They think it's a game. I'm like, actually, no, it's not a game. I mean, you can do games on it, and that's not a bad thing at all, but it's kind of setting that expectation and being picky with your clients, and just kind of making sure you target the right people. But so in general, as far as companies, some companies might not be able to afford, having a team work on an app, but you can always, I guess so this is where I disagree with some people. My stance is, you can always simplify an app way down and make it really inexpensive. That's minimal effort. And some people say, no, you shouldn't do that. You should have a very nice standard and make things look really nice. And I don't know. I think that to grow the mixed reality future, you have to have really nice apps, but you also have to have accessible apps that people can actually afford, even if it's a little ugly. So I found success in both, both of those thinkings.
How much have you been able to use voice as a substitute for user interaction features? And second, what does your tennis app do?
Okay, yeah. So voice is key, actually, I would say. Using the pointer is really tedious for people. They don't like doing this, and for some reason it's really hard to communicate. So, as much as possible, I use voice in all my applications for menu items, for selecting things, for even in the tennis application. Tennis is great because, so what the tennis application does is you've got a coach and a student. It's a shared holographic experience, and the coach is able to place several targets around the tennis court, and the students can see where those targets are placed. And then the students will hit the targets, and then the coach will observe and see, okay, if the ball hit the target, it's a hit. If it missed the target, it's a miss, and they'll go back, hit the yellow target, hit green, hit yellow, hit green, miss yellow, miss green. And then at the end of the session, the coach will stop the session. It tallies up all the statistics, saves it to OneDrive, and then you're able to kind of see the progress over time, if you will. So for that application, it would be really bad if the coach were trying to observe the targets and then going back and hitting the button to record if it was a hit or a miss. So that's something you just have to use voice. There's almost no other choice. But yeah, voice is key in my opinion. If you can use voice, you absolutely should, and you can use voice, so you definitely should.
So you talked a bit earlier on about having a good pipeline, and you've also talked about how unfamiliar this is. So what does the beginning of your pipeline look like? How are you talking to new companies who are interested in this? Do they find you, or do you find them?
I would say probably 3/4 have found me through apps that I put out on LinkedIn. I'll share something on LinkedIn, I'll share something on YouTube, I'll share something on Twitter. So I'd say a lot of people have found me, but I've also talked to a lot of people as well. The tennis app is one example. I think I found him on Reddit, actually, of all places. So yeah, I've sent out sometimes just not cold calling, but like cold emails, just saying, hey, would you like a demo of the HoloLens? And you'll get mixed responses, but I think the key is to just kind of keep doing that. Keep talking to people. And I was just walking through the mall the other day, and I saw this visualization, this physical model. I was like, I should send him an email. And this is exactly what I'm doing with the app. So yeah, I think it's just a matter of finding out who's the right person to email, who's the right person to call, giving them a call, and you got to start somewhere, right? So, but yeah, I think it is very important to have experiences and to share them and make sure that they get you're discoverable online. So many people use Google or Bing, and they, to try and find developers and to try and find, hey, who's a developer in the medical field, or who's a developer in the HoloLens developer in the education field, and that can definitely help your chances a lot.
Do your projects typically end in a convert, like the person believes in the HoloLens when you deliver this project and they go and they buy one themselves? What would you peg the percentage of, like, they get it, they think it's okay, they get it, they're excited, they get it, and they're like 100% sold?
Let's see. So far, all my clients have been repeat clients. So every client that I've worked with ended a project. They've come back, sometimes instantly, sometimes a few weeks later. Sometimes, like Dubai, they're wanting to do something on an ongoing basis for all their buildings that they're building. So I would say that, yeah, in the most part, once they experience it, once they see the app, then they get really excited about it. And you kind of catch the fire, right? You catch the fever, and then there's no going back. So I would say, in my experience, I haven't had any negative experiences so far. As far as do they buy it personally for themselves, I don't think so. I don't think that's happened yet. But definitely for the company, they do that.
Who within the companies, who do you target?
That's a good question.
At what level?
Yeah, so, with Dubai, it was their IT department. Some companies, it's their marketing department. For smaller companies, it's just one of the co-founders.
At what point does this decision maker come in? Are those teams the decision makers and the apps that are being built?
Generally, yeah. Or they're highly influential.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry, got another one. How long do you typically spend on a prototype after you pitch the idea and then you want to get something into the client's hands? How long is generally a good amount of time before they get worried or bored?
Yeah. This is a tough one because I always want to spend longer than. So actually, there's been a few times when somebody's like, "Hey, can you, I'm really interested in this project." I'll be like, "Yes, I will get you, something. Let's have a conversation." And then because I'm wanting to give them some like a good demo, I end up not having time for it, and then I let it fall by the wayside, and then it's too late, or it never happens, right? And I've let so many opportunities slip through my fingers as well. But I would say the faster the better. Like within a day or two, if you can just give them something super fast, that kind of helps keep the momentum going. Yeah, I think anything longer than like a week or two, then either you'll lose interest or they'll lose interest, or things change, things move quickly. So I'd say just something really quick, even if it's just like sitting down at Unity, looking through the asset store, just like spending like 4 hours, just like, let me just put something together really quick, or sometimes 5 minutes, but just at least a few hours that you can give a demo. I think that goes a long way. So, yeah, in my experience, those are really important. And unless you have a lot of time, which I know a lot of you probably don't set unrealistic or expectations for yourself, because more than likely you just won't get to it. That's been my experience. Okay, well I think,
I know this is Hololens Meetup, but where are you on the Magic Leap, hype curve, hype train?
So we were talking about this earlier. I think that I was really excited, and then I was really excited, and then I was just like, okay, I don't know what's happening. I don't really know, to be honest. I think when they come out with something, I think I'd be really interested to see what it is. I'm just kind of waiting and seeing at this point. I don't know if that answers your question or not.
Has ARKit or ARCore increased the velocity of the conversations that you're having? Have you seen that impact the market at all, where people understand it from the mobile standpoint?
I noticed a huge spike right before ARKit was released. A lot of people were asking me about it, and I really wanted to get ramped up on that, and I just had no time because I was working on MR stuff. So I kept promising clients, hey, I'll look into this and get you a demo, but it never happened. But surprisingly, after ARKit was released and now is available, I don't get any requests on that anymore. So I think there was a big hype and interest at first, and now I'm not sure what's happening. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see how that plays out in the next few months.
We just got our first mixed reality headset, but it's not mixed yet. It's VR only. What do you know?
Oh, I get this question every time.
Yeah, what do you know about the Microsoft? Anybody from Microsoft here?
There's quite a few actually.
All right, I'll ask first. What do we know about the timeline on that? When does it become?
I'll have a demo later. I don't know how long we're going to be here, but if you want to try something in the HoloLens or the mixed reality immersive headsets, you can. So yeah, I think a lot of people say, oh, this is not mixed reality, what's that? And I get that all the time, and I still get that. And so Microsoft's official response is that it's a spectrum, and mixed reality includes real reality and virtual reality and augmented reality and everything in between.
Don't buy it.
Including 360 videos, right? So at first I was calling these mixed reality devices, but now when I talk to clients, I call them virtual reality devices, and I think Microsoft's been going that way too. So yeah, and HoloLens, I refuse to call it augmented reality because I feel like your phone is the augmented reality, and that name is very much attached to screen-based experiences, which in my opinion is a completely different experience in technology than wearing something transparent on your head. So there's all this terminology arguments that people have all the time, and I think whatever works for you. Sometimes I just call them smart glasses.
Well, it doesn't matter the terminology, but when are we going to get
Like spatial?
overlays of reality in the mixed reality
Yeah,
headsets?
I don't know. That's a question for Microsoft. But you know, I do know, like if you go onto your device portal on your PC, you'll see spatial mapping. So that leads me to believe that yeah, it's definitely coming for these headsets.
Right.
And
I know it's coming.
yeah, so it's just you know, definitely not in any of the current devices. Of course, you can always put a webcam on top of yours and do your own mixed reality. Yeah, I have no idea as far as timeline goes. I know it's coming, I just don't know when. So.
Usually, you said you spend a day or two putting together a demo, so that means that you actually physically bring the HoloLens to the client?
No, sometimes it's just a video, just using mixed reality capture and just showing them, hey, this is my office. This is what this app looks like, and you can walk around it. You can move it around, and that's good enough, for the most part. Yeah, I think people sometimes the actual people definitely like the actual demo, and there's certain things that you can't really see in 2D that you can see in 3D. For example, I don't know if you've been amazed at spatial mapping and how it just feels so nice, and then you show it on mixed reality capture, and you're like, oh, it doesn't even make sense anymore because it's all 2D. So there's a few things that you can't really show unless you have the headset on, but for the most part, the video is just fine. I don't know if I'm over my time or not, but Paul, you're welcome to.
Feel free if people have questions. Feel free to continue.
I'd love to hear some ideas, as you're thinking about the future of mixed reality. So I had a really nice conversation with what's your name again? Yeah, about education apps, the physics and what you can do. And every classroom should have an AR and a VR headset, right? I mean, it's just so natural to think about the way people learn and how you can pick up things a lot more quickly and intuitively. So I would also love to hear some of your ideas and, as far as the future of mixed reality. Everyone's keeping their ideas very, very close to the It's a good thing, right?
I can tell you one of the things that I really want, and I know that this is coming, but I want to stop having to be seated at a desk with a screen in front of me. Ergonomically, you're getting more and more studies now that are saying sitting in front of the screen all day is not good for your health. And even standing desks, you're still in one position, and apparently that's not that much better. You want to be able to move around.
Yeah.
And so it would be nice, the limiting factor I think right now is, first of all, you'd have to rig up some kind of keyboard, right? The keyboard is still kind of an essential piece of the way we work, and the virtual keyboard in the HoloLens is not adequate for that. And I know you have actually shown off a sort of workstation that you use. What do you do? What is that?
So that, I think you're referring to one of my YouTube videos, right? Maybe. So it's just a holographic 2D screen. So you're still kind of sitting at your desk, and I guess you don't have to sit. You can stand. But that's just showing you. It was just an example of how the HoloLens can replace all the screens in your life. But I think what you're saying is really important because we're transitioning from that really clunky 2D computing experience to a truly 3D immersive computing experience. If you think about the mouse, like my kids right now, some of them are just learning to use the mouse, and it's so clunky. It's not natural. It actually takes a long time to learn how to be precise with a mouse. We're all trained to use the mouse, on a 2D screen that moves a pointer, and it's just, that's not really, we're trained to do that, just like we're trained to operate a crane or trained to operate any other piece of machinery. And so you can imagine in the HoloLens, it's a lot more intuitive. Yeah, you can start to walk around your computer and not just be sitting. And I think that it's up to us. I don't think anyone's figured out yet. I think text input, that's a huge one that nobody's figured out yet. I don't know if it's going to be a holographic keyboard that floats in front of you, which, by the way, you can totally do, right? With enough time using the camera, you can detect people's fingers, and you can do some smart stuff, right? Again, we have the platform, we have the technology. It's just a matter of the time and who's going to develop it, right? So we have the capability, but it's hard, right? So it's a matter of developing it. I don't really feel like that's the solution. You know, I feel like there's something else, some other way for us to input text, and I don't have the solution, but I know it's out there. Somebody's going to figure it out, right? And if you do, upload it to the asset store and you'll be a millionaire. Right? Opportunities.
I want to see more done around music.
What's that?
I want to see more done around music.
Yes.
I don't know how, I'm not a developer, but there's got to be some cool way to, I don't know if it's, are you live at a concert, or are you, are you learning how to play an instrument, or are you hands-on, I don't know.
Yeah.
But there's not a whole lot out there right now, or in the music industry,
Yeah.
and around that platform.
There's a lot of potential in spatial audio. We're playing with flying through pieces of sound.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
That's cool.
it's very cool, it's fun. I
Yeah.
haven't figured out what you do with that
Right.
yet.
Yeah.
There are apps where you're playing on virtual
Yes,
instruments,
right.
but there's, I don't know, maybe it's the app, the computer, whatever, but there's enough of a lag that if you're really a musician, it's a little
Yeah.
clunky.
Yeah.
So Lucas Risotto, who presented last time here, had a few videos that he wasn't ready to release yet. But one of them, he was going around making rainbows and music all over the room. It was this really nice sort of interactive music visualization thing that I hope he puts the video up because
Yeah.
it's really a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think that's great, and I think there's a huge opportunity. Music is always evolving, right? It always takes the latest technology and figures out how to put it in, and the sounds are always changing. It's always getting more progressive and more intense, and I can just imagine in VR and AR, just all the opportunities you can use with hands and you can use with motions to develop new sounds and new rhythms that we just don't have today. And then related to that, one of Jonathan's ideas that we were talking about was being able to use spatial mapping and converting that to spatial audio for people who are blind. Not just, I've seen a few apps that are like directions, like, okay, you turn here, turn there, and that's great, but actually more like a bat. A bat uses sound to map its environment.
The Boston
There-
Hackathon actually did that.
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
Oh,
Years
wow.
ago, They built a sonar, basically.
Really?
And so they asked us to close our eyes and make us walk through a whole set.
We did on ABWE, we did on ABWE.
Yeah,
too.
so as you're
That's pretty-
approaching objects, you can hear
Yeah, but
you can
you
hear the
have to
shape of
hear
the
it.
objects. You
It
can
was a
hear.
bit scary the first time we did it, though.
We have a gentleman who's been at the last two meetups, and unfortunately he's not here. He's from Spain, and he is working actively on this project as I think as a commercial project. So
Recognizing
if
objects for blind,
Yeah.
where they can repeat back to, milk, or,
Oh, yeah.
like.
And that's the AI part right there,
yeah.
I tell you, there's just so many opportunities. I wish I was doing all this stuff, but I can't.
I think the 360 sound on the HoloLens is one of the least talked about things because it's really crisp and good sound and it's not obtrusive. You don't have
And
to
it
fit
is
it on your
powerful.
ears.
So in my book, I have an experiment for you to try, and you have an audio source, it's spatial audio, and you close your eyes and you can kind of feel where the audio source is, and you put your fist, and then you open your eyes, and your hologram is perfectly where your fist is, right? So that's like, whoa, that blew my mind the first time I tried that, because I'm like, all right, number one, it's so accurate in knowing what my brain is doing that it's able to position something. Number two, it's so accurate in knowing where my eyes and the placement that the digital object is placing something in the exact same place that the sound is in my brain. I was just like, how is this possible? And it is so powerful, we barely scratched the surface on what we can do with that. So yeah, absolutely.
The other area is social, because, I don't know, I work for a community center and everything is very socially oriented, but then now you've got one kid with a headset on. How do you share that? How do you project it? How do you make it more than just a kind of solo experience?
So like a shared hologram experience? Yeah, so actually most of the apps that I've created for clients have been shared holographic experience. The tennis app, the Dubai apartment app, they've got 4 HoloLenses. They've got a salesperson and a few people, and the salesman will actually walk through and be like, hey, look at this really nice kitchen counter over here, and everyone can see it and be like, wow, and you can kind of, hey, let's rearrange the furniture, let's put the sofa over here, the chair over here, oh, can you put that coffee maker over on this counter? And everyone can kind of see things happening in real time, and that's huge for them, right? The buildings, urban planning model that I've done for Shanghai, that's a shared experience. So I think the shared hologram experience, that's kind of really, that's a big value add. You know, whenever you can, you should add sharing into your application, so it's not just a solo application. I don't know if that answers your question.
Is that running on one computer, or do you each have a computer?
So on the HoloLens, each is its own device.
It's its own,
Yeah, if you wanted to do it, so I have sharing with the immersive headset as well, but it's one computer is one device.
Right.
So if you wanted, let's say, 5 devices, you'd have to have 5 different computers. So I have an experience where you actually wear a computer on your backpack and you can walk through.
Right.
And I'm still fine-tuning the positional, the co-located position. That's a little bit more tricky, but it's coming together. Yes.
Has anything been done in healthcare? Because one of the frustrations I have is trying to counsel people that cannot see what's going on in them, and then things happen.
So I would say healthcare has actually been one of the HoloLens' biggest things. I personally have not done anything in healthcare at all, but I feel like every other demo I see is a healthcare demo. So I'm not sure what the statistics are, but I know for a fact a lot of people are doing stuff in healthcare. I think I've seen surgery demos, I've seen medical room demos, I've seen like where doctors will look at a tumor inside the body, or view just anatomy, look at different parts of the body. So yeah, I know there's a lot going on in the medical field, and I don't do that, but I can connect you with a lot of people I know.
There's a team here in New York that uses it for brain surgery. We saw a demo at the Sotheby's VR conference.
Wow.
That just was unbelievable. They visualize this person's brain and they go inside to figure out how they're going to go in and get the tumor. It's just
Wow.
So Cornell,
Isn't that Cornell?
yeah, Cornell University is doing a lot, as well as Case Western. Case Western's been on board with us since the beginning, but Cornell they're making strides on the East Coast in the medical field.
Yeah, the medical is a huge opportunity. So many people, there's so many needs there, and I haven't even touched medical at all, but I know a lot of people are doing it, and there's a lot of need there too.
What has been the lead vertical for you? Do you have a...
So that's my biggest problem right now.
You don't have that focus?
No, so everything I read, everything people tell me, they're like, if you want to be successful, you need to focus in. And so right now, I'm trying really hard to let stuff go, but it's so tough, I enjoy working with clients, and I enjoy working with new experiences. And I'm not a tennis player, but I made a tennis coaching app.
Do you have a favorite?
A favorite? So because my background's in energy, that's kind of where, and so this is where the perfection things comes in. Because my background's in energy, I feel really like I want to make the perfect energy app, right? And so I'm not quite ready to like release something that's just a prototype yet. So I would say that I'm heading towards that being my vertical. But in the meantime, I'm just enjoying working with all these other clients. So it's, because I know a lot of people in the energy industry. I know I have a lot of inside roads and people who know me very well. And so, I'm working on this big app that I'm going to start pitching to all that's kind of my personal gold mine there. So, yeah. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Sean. Before we leave, we have a drawing to do.
So, Sean, you want to be the official drawer? We have, can somebody grab, we have 2 of Sean's books back there, so
And
we'll raffle
people
those
don't have
off.
to leave right away, right?
No, I can hang out, and I'm hoping, Sean brought his devices. If you haven't had a chance to see the immersive one, it's
Janice
a great
King.
chance.
That's me.
Oh, there you go.
Thank you.
There you
Thank
go.
you so much.
I'm happy to sign it if
before
you want.
leave.
Yes, please.
All right, next
more.
card. Paul Blair.
I think I should pass.
Okay.
I run the meetup.
Do you have
And
a
I
book?
have a copy.
Okay.
I'll actually have you sign my copy.
Oh, how do you pronounce your name again?
Martin.
There you are. All right, thank you.
All right, well, feel free to hang out, and maybe people can have some
Yeah.
demos.
Nope, I'm not.
You're not?
She's not either. I'm Kim.
Yes, absolutely.
Great.
Just gonna want to talk a little bit, we just wait.
Yeah.
I know I want to do demos.
Okay.
I think we're gonna want to see this. You should.
Oh, yeah, demo, yeah, sorry, if you guys want a demo. All right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, actually, I don't know, to be honest.
Dropping everything at the end of the year and focusing on just getting myself your projects out there. I've been doing the same thing. Yeah.
But I guess the problem is it gets into somebody have a beautiful rendering individually.
Yeah. So we're getting much more realistic than in the HoloLens, because the HoloLens doesn't have any powerful graphics. Yeah, so let me show you, for example, what I did for July. So this has some, because of the rendering, you can drop down the right but you can get an idea of how realistic it is. Let's say about half of the things I did like that, so you try to make it as realistic as possible. The other half is just together fairly quickly. You'll be able to well, actually, no, some of them were actually some of them I got, so I guess some I got is
But the acolytes, do you need to,
and if it comes out, so what you're seeing with this small screen, you see that's the field of view limitation. So everything that you see happens in that little area. Of course, with the immersive headset, it's a lot bigger.
So the projects that you're doing, what's the breakdown between immersive and
Well, immersive just recently came out. So this is actually the first application that I have working on both.
So I've never used it.
Oh yeah, sorry. You leave it on, but you just put this on. You want to make sure you see a clear rectangle in front of you, that's the field of view. And then from there, you just kind of walk around and look around. You got loosen or tighten depending on what's comfortable to you. Okay, good. Oh yeah.
That's just a
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, you don't need most of them for the HoloLens because you're not creating the whole environment. You don't need the trees, you don't need the all these things that it does that really don't have to do with the object and the
Yeah. So let's touch base. I've got your card now, so I'll contact you. Yeah, let's work on the proposal together. And then, yeah, absolutely. I think that's a huge opportunity. I mean,
Yeah, I've read.
yeah. I think it's a
See you next time.
See you guys.
Yeah.
It is, yeah.
Thank you so much for organizing this.
Thanks for helping us out.
Take care.
You're welcome.
I'm usually always in the drawing. Like that's
Oh, well, congratulations. I hope you like the book. It's really a good book, and I don't know if you've done any development for...
I'm not a developer, but I want to start off. I sound so much more
So I actually walked through.
Education, like a good overview. I mean, if you like also, you can do it. Because we wanted to have a team, like
Yeah, so this
Verizon.
doesn't do texture, but it does shape. So you can go around and scan it.
Verizon is starting to...
Because then I went back, I took a bunch of pictures too, then I went back and yeah, so then the 3D artists went through and did kind of a first pass. So let me show you.
So they have this announcement for writing proposals.
Oh, I see. So they just want VR or AR. They don't care if it's education or whatever. They just want
Yes,
somebody
they
with
want some
ideas.
ideas.
So it can capture the
I was thinking, and they were very interested in
but it just won't get all like the nooks and crannies.
writing the proposal because
So it's good if you want to
Well, so for me, I'm not ready yet. I'm really focusing on my thing so that I can get it done because I'm not an experienced. I'm not an experienced developer. So I'm trying to get my portfolio projects done. So I'm actually working on a thing for furniture.
it's the app.
It's an app. So the idea is, say you have a house and you have a sofa in your basement, and you sold the sofa, and you need to get the sofa out the door and up the stairs and out the front door.
We don't want to be tethered
But
to
you
it.
don't want to have to carry it and find out that you don't know how to orient the sofa in order to make it
Yeah,
fit.
we understand the trade-off.
So I'm going to use the Hololens. I have most of this written. Put the box around the sofa. Then you say, come with me, and it takes the holographic box,
And I told them,
and you
let
go
me
where
at
you
least
want
show
to
this
go.
to you.
And it's
Not
scanning
even
the
this, you don't
room
have to
while
set up
it's
any external
going.
sensors. You can have
Then
it
you
in
say,
your laptop on your backpack
put it
and
down,
walk around.
put the box
You can't
down,
maintain
and then
eye
it will
contact,
figure
but
out
maybe
how do I carry it
there's kind of a
so
different
that I
set of
don't bump
trade-offs.
into
So, okay, well, I think about it.
for moving, or
But
even if
the
you're
good
just
thing is
moving
that
yourself.
now,
This is
when I
like
make an app,
a kind of, it's not that, but
I'm like,
it's
you don't have to use it, but it's there if you want to use
There's
it.
GPS, I don't know that.
Yeah, I saw in the National Lab conference. So there is a type of GPS that shows you the way, just show the arrows.
Oh, yeah, okay. And the way this will work is similar. So once it figures it
all
out,
their modeling in
then
Maya,
you say
and then
replay,
they import it
and it
into
will,
Unity just
like,
to make
if
sure
the
it's
sofa's
right.
there, it will then move it to
But
the
then I
first
do further
step, and then you can lift it up to where the first, and then you say next, and it will move you to the next spot, and then you move to so. So when you're wearing the HoloLens, it will take you through
into
all the
using 3D
steps,
images.
and you just have to move the object into the
And then,
box.
as a developer, me
Oh, the
and
box that
the
shows.
developer I work
The
with,
box that
we just
contains
do,
it.
yeah, everything in Unity.
So
with C#.
ultimately, what I'd like to do is make it more like, it would, you put the box around it, and then it's like
Yeah, thank you,
a
thank you
cut,
very much.
a
Appreciate
cutting
you coming.
text in the text editor. It will
No,
cut
you don't have to.
the
So
outline
if this
of
is
the
your first
sofa,
time, you can actually
and you will,
put this
instead of
on,
having a box, you
tighten
would
it
actually
back over
see
here.
sort of
If you have
the
glasses,
outline
you
of
can
the
pull it out
sofa.
more. You can bring it in.
There is, yes,
That's
You
the
can raise it high.
It's gonna be more
Or you can
advanced, I
bring
don't
it
know
down
how
low.
to do that
And
yet.
you want to get to the point where you see a
Thanks.
rectangle, that's the field of view in front of you.
Yeah, so there have
It's kind of
been
like
people
you see
who
only
talk
half
to
of it
about education. So there's a,
rectangle window.
somebody named
Stuff then
Ross
kind of
Cohen,
adjust it.
who runs a group called the Wake Guys in Brooklyn, I think. And they are in the New York City public school system with the HoloLens right now. And they're very interested in education, so I can also put you in touch with them.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you have my card? I don't think
No,
you
do you have my card?
I don't think you gave, did you give me your card? I don't think so. I got the card.
Michigan.
It gets a little bit of, it takes a little bit of getting used to adjust it just right. If you prefer to do it without your glasses, you're open to try that.
It just seems a little high.
I did not even.
Try and pivot. So you can walk around, or you can look at the floor and then air tap, kind of like a pinching gesture, and that'll transport you to a different area.
Got it.
As much as we can.
I thought I was.
Yes, yep, so that's the field review invitation that you'll see people working on.
And there's a big community out here. Like it's not.
Over there.
I'm gonna grab a slice of pizza. Before it's all dry.
One of the Microsoft people said yes.
And I would love to.
This is an odd
Industry.
an odd combination. And that's what was odd is
That
it just,
I
it was unexpected. Yeah,
we'll figure out what's going on with our